Good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is, wherever you are. This is John Paul Ryan. I'm coming to you from Tokyo, Japan. Today, I want to talk about Stan Lee, and we got the sad recent news that he passed away. And the thing for me is, I like to remember how people lived when something like this happens and kind of look back in their past and use it as a chance to really put the spotlight back on them and just see the great things they did. And in Stan Lee's case, there was a lot of great things. First, I want to say, when I was growing up, and even recently, when I thought back to Marvel and Stan Lee, I always had this image in my head that he came way after DC in the business, like 20 years, 15, something like that. And I found out that he's been in the business for a really long time, actually. So I want to read a little bit about Stan Lee and his past from an article I got from Variety, I think it was from the New York Times. Honestly, they're all the same at this point right now, so one of those two. And here goes. I'm just going to let the slideshow roll because there's so many great pictures of Stan Lee out there. Lee got started in comics in 1939 when he joined Timely Comics as an office assistant. The publisher, founded by Lee's cousin-in-law, Martin Goodman, would eventually transform into Marvel Comics. Right, so as I was saying, that's about the time when he kind of blew up, you could say, or got to be kind of a household name, but he's actually been around since the 30s. And the best part about Stan Lee is how he looked at his characters. Well, not the absolute best part. The best part was just he was a really cool guy. He did a lot of cameos for people, smaller directors. He didn't have to do that. He could have just sat back, and watched from the behind the scenes. But he did a lot of cameos and stuff. But his way of thinking on how a character should be was pretty perfect. Lee recognized that his heroes were still human, capable of all the same flaws and fears as anyone else. So that little clip there was something I recognized when I saw Stan Lee's appearance in the movie Mallrats by Kevin Smith. And he came in and he met Silent Bob, who was Kevin Smith's character in the movie, and told him about how heroes should have weaknesses. He told him about how Doctor Doom was kind of about himself and how he had to hide behind this mask because he was, too nervous to ask this girl out or something like that. I can't remember the exact story. It's been a while. But the point is, it was really about his own insecurity. And, of course, the Hulk is about how people have anger and they have these rages and they can't control themselves, but they could also be nice people at the same time, and something to that extent. So the way he thought of characterization was, just incredible. Absolutely a lesson that Lucasfilms could take right now for some of their characters. So the thing is, obviously, this is really upsetting because we lose a creative force in the world, but at the same time, I think it's really good to remember the great things about him and the way he lived. And from what I've seen from Stan Lee over the years, have just been this really happy guy, and I haven't seen him in any controversies or any bullshit with the media and the way things are going today. He just really stayed above everybody on everything, I think, and that's really commendable. So let me read one last bit about Stan Lee. When he came up with early Marvel Comics heroes like the Fantastic Four, comics had traditionally been meant for a younger audience, but Lee saw potential in telling stories for an older crowd. And this also reminds me of Game of Thrones and George R.R. Martin's theory, where he said, I think there's really an adult audience for medieval fantasy, where it doesn't have to be marketed towards teenagers or younger kids like Lord of the Rings was traditionally, and, The Hobbit and the first Lord of the Rings movies. And so it seems like here, I would say probably Stan Lee influenced George R.R. Martin and a lot of other people, which we can't forget, is when you see someone like this, don't forget, they've influenced all these creative people among the entire spectrum of genres that exist. It's not just them in their superhero genre. Anyway, you guys let me know what you think down in the comments. Love to hear your comments. And channel's growing little by little. Please consider subscribing, give a little support. I do shoutouts, special thanks, and I will see you next time.